Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic, what is today's topic? I'll remember in a minute. Today's topic is self-care, actually, and self-care as a path to self-knowledge. So that'll be fun. But before we get started, let's just take a minute to settle in and take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding into your lungs and flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing your cells and your organs, purifying and lifting up and enlivening as you exhale. Exhale any tension, stress, toxicity, negativity. And now take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, energizing, electrifying, and lighting up all your molecules and electrons and connecting you with the world beyond. As you exhale, exhale any remaining stress, tension, toxicity, negativity. And now let's just gently press our palms together and just really softly rub your fingers against your palms and feel the sensations in your fingers and in your palms, and allow yourselves to become present to the magic of being physical and these wonderful sensations that we get to experience. So welcome, welcome. We're talking today about self-care, and I've mentioned before mind flavors. Good morning, Rosalind. Great to have you here. And just so you know, Maggie is here. She's just very busy eating an apple. And I figured if I feed her more in the morning, perhaps she won't bite me as much. So she loves apples. Anyway, I'm sure she'll make an appearance as we're talking. Anyway, self-care. So mind flavors. I am in a new cycle with them, and it's called Loving Self-Care. And the interesting thing about the topic is that it has brought us into an awareness of a deeper awareness of what self-care actually is. And in the physical expression, perhaps self-care can be things like giving yourself proper rest, proper food, exercise, nurturing time in nature. You know, there are all kinds of physical things that are aspects of self-care. The thing that came apparent, which really wasn't obvious about self-care, is a connection with intuition, a connection with our inner knowing, and this connection with our heart and the voice of intuition and sort of a greater connection to the universe that became apparent as the foundation, really, of self-care. Because if we think of the self, the essential self, it is that self that is speaking from the heart. And when we honor that, that is perhaps the ultimate in self-care, because we are recognizing our deeper self. And so interestingly, things that came up in this expansion of awareness around what self-care is paying attention to our intuition, is trusting ourselves, you know, finding that connection and then trusting that connection, and having our actions in the world be in alignment with that aspect of ourselves, that knowingness that we are. And here comes Maggie with a mouthful of apple. Here she is. So I think it's really, really revelatory, at least it was for me, to recognize that self-care isn't so much, good morning, Dido. We're talking about self-care kind of as a path to authentic expression. What was a revelation for me is that I recognized that the ultimate of self-care is true authentic expression. And in order to fully express our authentic selves, we need to be connected. And so how do we find that level of connection in order to be caring for ourselves? And I think this is not a new conversation, but it's about listening. It's about touching into our heart and our gut. Rosalind says, "Good morning, Maggie." Good morning, Maggie. She's back. She said, "Good morning, Rosalind." She's back eating her apple. So I should show you her eating her apple because it's just too cute. Here, Maggie. Show everybody how you eat your apple. Come on, baby. Want your apple? Anyway, so it's the self-care thing is not necessarily, it's not in any way limited to the typical things that we consider as self-care, like getting a massage or taking a wonderful bath. Those things are really important, but the ultimate of self-care is honoring ourselves enough to have authentic self-expression. And it was really a revelation to me that uh, that that authenticity is the foundation. What does it stem from? It stems from honoring our essential selves. And when we do that, we are more connected to our intuition. We are more connected to our own knowing. We are more connected to our guidance, and there's an honoring of it. And in the honoring of that authentic self, we are also honoring our values, and we are more inclined to be making choices and doing things that are in alignment with that essential self that we're honoring. And I hadn't ever really put it together in this same way before, to recognize that truly authentic self-expression is the highest form of self-care, because it is me honoring myself, my essential self. And what I'm talking about is not the superficial personalities sort of thing. I am really addressing the deeper values and the deeper sense of presence and ultimately beingness that we are when we're present to the experience of life. And so we can be looking at this on all levels, but certainly on the more physical levels, when we recognize that we're experiencing stress, for instance, that's something that we can address by taking different actions, by being in recognition and honoring that we need care, that we need relief, perhaps. So, and Rosalind says, with self care, we can bring our best self forward and show up for others. Exactly. Exactly. But the thing is that we get to first show up for ourselves, because if we don't show up for ourselves and we try to show up for others, what's happening is that we're not necessarily in alignment, and we're not necessarily being respectful of our own needs. And as a result of not being respectful of our own needs, I can't say how many times I've spoken to healer people who have just completely overextended themselves because they're not honoring themselves. They're not honoring their own needs. They're they're finding their own validation by giving to others, but to such an extent that it becomes detrimental. And that's a dishonoring of oneself and one's own needs and capacities. And I think it's a really interesting dynamic where we often view self-care as selfish. You know, that if we take care of ourselves, that that's being selfish. And I just want to redefine the idea of being selfish. If we do not care for ourselves, if we do not preserve ourselves, then we do not, as Rosalind says, has the capacity to show up for others really in fullness. So this is a conversation also about sustainability for ourselves, you know, because we can be we can be engaged in pursuits in supporting others and other things in our lives that end up depleting us to a point where we could potentially become incapacitated, and that doesn't help anybody, right? It doesn't help us, it doesn't help the people we want to support, etc. So I just I I see more and more and more how all roads point to connecting with our own authenticity, our own essential selves. And the thing about that essential self is that it's not bound by our ideas of our identities. You know, it's not bound by our beliefs even. It's beyond our beliefs. And that place, that wellspring from which our what we call intuition arises, is a knowingness that is beyond the superficial things that we believe ourselves to be. And uh, caring for that part of ourselves, honoring that part of ourselves that is beyond all the beliefs and the ideas of who we think we are, and the reactivity that we think we are. Caring for that self, that knowingness, which I believe is our essential self, caring for that enough to let go of the attachment to all these other superficial things, not denying them, not denying those things. But good morning, Tammy. Maggie, Tammy says hi. Say hello. I don't know if she will, but she hasn't learned that yet. Anyway, what we want to when we focus on that part of ourselves that is beyond the identities and the drama, then that relieves the more superficial selves also. You know, when we come from this place of non-attachment, non-identification with, you know, not being identified with our positions and our beliefs and our roles, then there's a relief about it. There is a relaxation about life. There's an ability to allow life to flow with more grace and more ease. And I think understanding or recognizing the stories or the conversations that are going on in our heads that are behind our experience of emotion, recognizing those stories and allowing ourselves to interact with them as stories rather than as truths enables us to connect more directly with that deeper knowing, that deeper presence, that deeper sense of being that is the life force moving through us, that is the force that animates us in the world. And Shakespeare said, all of life is a stage and we are merely players. If we connect to that deeper self, we can recognize our roles, the roles that we play. And when we can recognize those roles, there's a freedom of perspective that allows us to appreciate the roles without being subject to them, if that makes sense. I'm hoping that some of this is making sense, but the the deepest form of self-care is that connection with the observer self, I think. The observer self that has the capacity to bear witness to our lives and to our our ways of interacting and our ways of expressing, and have an appreciation for the drama of all of that without being subject to that drama. So give me some feedback here to let me know if any of this is making sense, and how cultivating this meta view, this meta perspective offers us a freedom. Like if we can say, wow, what a drama, like I can see that I'm having ups and downs in this relationship, and I'm having all kinds of fears and anxieties about that. And if I can stand back from this meta perspective, and also this place of heart and gut, perhaps I can recognize that it's all a manufactured experience, that it's not a matter of truth and reality with a capital R, that it is part of this grand drama and play that we get to play out in our lives, individually and collectively. And I just find that when I'm able to see things from that vantage point, that the details, that the terrors and anxieties shift. And so Rosalind says, does self-care include perspective? Well, I think that's what we're talking about. I think what we're talking about is taking a different perspective of what that self is, and who I am. And by shifting or expanding that perspective, it creates a trickle down experience of relief. And Rosalind goes on to say, how do I want to project myself into the world? Then the self-care will follow to support that projection. So this is really awesome, is the question, how do I choose to project myself into the world? And to notice that however we are, however we're being, that is a projection, and that it's not the reality of our essence, right? The reality of our essence, in my belief of our essence, and this is again a working hypothesis. I'm not proposing that this is the truth with the capital T. Just try it on and see if it works for you, because beliefs, I believe, are tools. Anyway, our essential self is not is light, is consciousness. Our essential selves are timeless and boundless, and it is that essential self that animates this whatever this expression is, this physical expression in the world. And so maybe today I choose to project myself as dancing. What if I be dancing in the world for a day? You know, how does dancing express itself? What would that look like? How would that show up in my beingness? And what if I chose to express myself as nature? How would that show up in my beingness? What if I chose to express myself as as a child? What would that look like? What would my experience be if I project myself into the world as a child? What would my experience be of the things in the world that are so awe-inspiring? What if I projected myself as a teacher? You know, so there's, I think, when we recognize that we have the opportunity to choose how we project ourselves into the world, we get to play with it. And when we play with it, we can recognize that while we can project that, it's not the totality of who we are. It's an aspect, because we can don all different costumes and personas and um, roles and perspectives. So I think that freeing ourselves from a limited identity is a really profound and important thing for our collective evolution. And I say that because the world is changing and calling us to evolve and emerge in different ways. And as we become more fluid in our expression, we become more capable of addressing the calls of the future and of the present, of the moment. And why not express ourselves in the world for a day as music? Try it on. What does it feel like to be music? Maybe if we express ourselves as music, there's an experience of rhythm and tone and volume and harmony and disharmony. And we have all different ways that we can flow with the experiences. I haven't really played with this idea until today, but I kind of like the idea of expressing ourselves in these different ways. Expressing what would it feel like to be music? What would it feel like to be dance? What would it feel like to be beauty? What would it feel like to be art or creativity? And what would it be like to carry that forward into the day as our intention? Today I am beauty. What discoveries, what might we make that we didn't ever imagine? And I think that playing with these different aspects is a form of self-care, because it's an expansive expression of self, outside the corners of the box that we often constrain ourselves to. So I find it really enjoyable to be having these explorations with you. Um, I and to be expanding and to be expanding the possibilities of even conceptualizing what we are, who we are, um, what the nature of the world is. So, what do you think? What do you think of this idea of trying on being an expression of music, or being an expression of peace, or of harmony, or of joy, or of music, nature, beauty, wonder? How does that feel for you as you feel into? I mean, it could be a wonderful meditation even, just to consider those those feelings, feeling into, if I were beauty, what would that feel like inside? What would I be seeing? What would I be hearing? How would I interact with others from that place? And this is a place of self-care, because all of those pieces are part of our beingness, right? All of that. We are, in our essence, I believe, again, hypothetically, in our essence, we are the experience of all of it. And I don't know, for me, just thinking of these modes of expression is making me feel lighter. I don't know if you're experiencing that, but I feel a lightness in my heart that I didn't feel before. Um, yeah, it's like this energy just sort of bubbling up, an energy of possibility. And so this alignment with authentic expression doesn't necessarily mean tying ourselves to a specific identity or role. Um, Authentic expression, I think, is expansive, and it doesn't just mean when I'm feeling down saying I'm feeling down, or when I'm feeling happy saying I'm feeling happy, although that's a really, really good start. Rosalind says, one idea is to picture self as a young version of your child self and carry through the day through the eyes of your child self. I think I'd be asking everyone silly questions. Well, that could be really fun. It could be really fun to be that child self. And even more than the silly questions, how about the experience of the internal curiosity? To revive that wonder and curiosity about things that, the questions we've stopped asking, or the questions we've answered in such a way that we then dispense with them. But those questions come from a space of wonder and curiosity about the world, and that there's a vitality in that. There's a joyfulness and a desire to drink in the experience of life even more. So yeah, I think that would be a fun thing to do. Why not? Why not? How would you take on the experiences of your life from the vantage point of your child self? So yeah, that could be really fun. Uh, anyway, all of these things, self-care is nurturing ourselves, finding alignment with our values, And also perhaps non-attachment to those values, and I'm not, that's an interesting idea actually, because when we recognize our values, they can become a guiding star. They can become our North Star to help keep us on track. And we get to know that they're tools. Values are tools, beliefs are tools to navigate the world, to have experiences. And maybe we can expand into a broader expression of ourselves, um, that that gives us more breathing room, that gives us um, more opportunity for expression and experience. So I think I think that's it for today. Maggie has given you enough entertainment, I imagine. There she goes. And I just really, really appreciate this time that we spend together. And I so appreciate you being here and sharing it this time with me and with Maggie. And I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. And I invite you to check out the other wonderful programming in the rich community of Enlightened World Network. And until next time, take care of you and explore how expansive you truly are. So lots and lots of love. Until next time.